You will make it through. The fitra is awake in you. With Quran and Sunnah by your side, here's a place where it will thrive. You will make it through. You will make it through. The fitra is awake in you. With Quran and Sunnah on his side, here's a place where it will thrive. You will make it through. With Quran and Sunnah on his side, here's a place where it will thrive. You will make it through.
Please get a copy of the book if you have not purchased it, and that's the author of the book, Dr. Karim Abuzaid. We will be covering today pages 307 through 311. We're going to speak about those who are deserving of complete disassociation, not hate. Hate is not the correct word to use. That's not the correct English word to use. The correct English word would be disassociation. Goes a little bit deeper than hate. And we'll explain that better. But first, let's look at the quiz. I want everybody to get ready to answer this question, these questions. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put a few things up here on the screen. And I want you to tell me which is an example of showing allegiance through your commitment. Because this was the question I was asked this weekend. What does it mean to show allegiance through commitment? Let's look at the first example. If I perform my 5 prayers every day, is this an example of allegiance through commitment? Is this an example of allegiance through commitment? You can type yes or no, and on the Zoom, you can use the mic and Zoom, yes or no. Is making my prayers every day an example of showing my allegiance through commitment?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Good job. Yes, good job, Aya, and good job, Yasmin, and whoever, and Sister S, and whoever answered in Zoom. Yes, this is because of making prayers, making our 5 daily prayers. This is an obligation that's imposed upon us by Allah. So if you perform them every day, yes, that's an example of showing your allegiance to Allah through your commitment, by honoring his commitment. That's a commitment, an obligation. What about this? Is paying zakat if you meet the criterion? Is that an example of showing allegiance through commitment?
Yes. Yes.
Good job. Yes, it is. Because again, paying the zakat, if you meet the criteria, is another example of another obligation imposed by Allah. What about this? Is wearing a hijab an example of allegiance through commitment?
Yes. Yes.
Good job, sisters. Yes, it is. Because wearing a hijab is an obligation. Now, one of the sisters that texted me this weekend asking me this question, she was told that a hijab is not an obligation. Can you guys believe that we have Arabic speaking people teaching? That's why I tell y'all, this is why I use pictures of the people whose books I am teaching. Just because a person speaks Arabic does not make them a scholar of this religion. I want you guys to understand that 30%, write this down, this is a fact. 30%, I repeat again, 30% of the Arab people are not Muslims. 30% of the Arabs are Christians. And you find a lot of them in Lebanon. You'll find a lot of them in Egypt too. Okay? Believe in Syria too. Believe it or not, guys, 30% of the Arabs are Christians. So just because a person speaks Arabic does not make them a Muslim. And just because a person speaks Arabic does not make them a scholar of Islam. Arabic is a language. It's not a religion. It's just a language. And the person that told her that wearing a hijab is not an obligation is a Christian Arabic woman who teaches at a Kafir university. And this woman hates Islam and has made it her career to try to disprove the Quran and to disprove Islam. There's a lot of Christian Arabs. They hate Islam because they blame Islam as the reason why the Arabs race is destroyed. They say that Islam has destroyed the Arab race, that the reason why the Arabs are not united and one is because of Islam. Okay? And I had to tell her, this woman is very well known. She's not even a Muslim. What are you listening to her for? I take her classes and she teaches Islamic history. I said, this woman is crazy. This woman ain't even a Muslim. This woman teaches that there's no verse in the Quran that says wearing hijab is an obligation. So I had to send the sister. I said, here, it's right there in the verse. Allah says, draw your hijab over your bosom when you go outside the house. That's the verse. Allah commands us. Allah says, oh, you women who believe, draw your kimar, your hijab over your bosom. That's the dalil. I said, so you got to stop listening to kafirs. Just because a person is Arab don't make them Muslim, and just because a person speaks Arab don't make them Arabic doesn't make them a scholar. That woman is a very well-known kafir, Lebanese Arabic woman who hates Islam and is trying to discredit the Quran and Islam. Okay? And this woman doesn't even wear Islamic clothing. She looks like a kafir. She don't wear Islamic clothing. She wears short dresses. She looks just like a kafir. She doesn't even pretend to be Muslim. She's tell you, she's a Christian Lebanese. This woman ain't no Arab, no Muslim Arab. She hates it. Okay? So we have to be careful. And I had to tell this new Shahada that. So you guys, we're living in the days of fitan that our prophet has warned us of. So be careful, new Shahadas, listening to people on the internet. And for those of you who are in college, universities, be super careful of the world of academia. When you take those Islamic history classes, those are not Islamic classes. That's the Western view of Islam. And most of the garbage is garbage. I had to take those classes too, because I have a degree in ancient civilization. And that crap is not based on the Quran and Sunnah. It's watered down man's version of Islam. And the stuff that they teach in those classes ain't none of that crap true. Okay? It's the Caucasian's view of how our way of life is barbaric. So be careful. All right? All right. What about this? Is this an example of showing allegiance, of commitment, providing for only one wife and not all your wives. Is this an example of showing allegiance of commitment?
No.
Does everybody agree with her? Why not?
Please, no.
Why not?
Because you're supposed to provide for all of them as a commitment. Yes.
Exactly. This is not an example, guys. Exactly. This is not an example, because Allah has commanded the Muslim man to provide, maintain, and protect all his wives, not just one. This is an obligation. An obligation is a commitment. You have to take care of all your wives, not just pick and choose which ones. Even though Khadijah, radiyallahu anha, was independent and self-sufficient, and I want y'all to understand, there's a misconception. There's a misconception that many Muslims have today, because again, we do not know the hadiths. We do not know the true Islam, because we have not learned the hadiths. Aisha did not provide and maintain the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even though she was rich and independent, the Prophet Muhammad provided and maintained her. He took care of her. She did not take care of him. So whoever told you that Khadijah took care of the Prophet Muhammad, that's a lie. He provided and he maintained her and all their children, even the two that were not his. There were 2 children she had from a previous marriage, from her previous marriages, and he took care of them too. So anyone that tells you that the Prophet Muhammad didn't take care of Khadijah because she chose to take care of herself, that's a lie. Even if a woman chooses to take care of herself, a good man would still provide and maintain for her, just like the Prophet Muhammad did. We all claim to be Salafi. We all claim to be upon the way of the Salaf. If you are upon the way of the Salaf, you would still send some money. You would still offer support and provisions for your wives, all of them. Even if you was married to a rich one like Khadijah, radiyallahu anha, you still offer something up. That's what the Salaf did. They didn't leave a woman and not ask her, or offer her something. In fact, you wouldn't ask. You just bring her something without her having to ask. That's the way of the Salaf. Because a man ain't gonna forfeit his manhood. The Prophet Muhammad didn't forfeit his manhood, but you brothers today are not men. You give up your manhood and you wonder why life is not good to you. And you think death is gonna be better? Like the Prophet said, the best of you are those who are good to all your wives. And I am better than all of you. You guys have got to live up to his example. You brothers, how many of you are living up to the example of the Prophet Muhammad with your wives? You got 2, 3, 4 wives, and you got wives that are struggling, and you're offering them nothing. They shouldn't have to ask for help. You should be sending them something, Zelle them some money, even if it's $200. Even if it's $300, Zelle your wife some money. What about this? Is this showing allegiance of commitment, favoring some children over others?
No. No.
Why not? A lot of you sisters do this. A lot of you sisters do this. This is a problem that you women do. I'm a witness to this every day. Why do you women favor some of your kids over others? You treat some children better than others. You abuse some of your daughters. But you show favoritism with them boys of yours. Or you show favoritism over some of your girls and you harsh on other girls. Why do you sisters do that? This is a big problem with you sisters. Is this showing allegiance of commitment? You're supposed to treat all your daughters the same, all your sons the same, your sons and daughters the same. I don't care if that one got more mouth than the other. I don't care if that one's father did you worse than the other. You're not supposed to favor children over others. You're supposed to be kind with them all, just with them all. Show attention to them all, but you women struggle with that. I've seen sisters take their anger out on other kids because of how their fathers treated them. That's bad. Allegiance of commitment. This is something that we struggle with. Okay? So, last question for today. We also spoke about two Arabic terms, hikmah and ilm. Ilm, we remember, refers to knowledge. What is the meaning of hikmah? And how does it differ from ilm? Who can answer that question? What is the meaning of hikmah? And how does it differ from ilm? Anyone? What is the meaning of hikmah? And how does it differ from ilm? Ilm means knowledge. What does hikmah mean in English? And how does it differ from knowledge?
Understanding is hikmah, because if you understand something, then you would do it. Knowledge is just something that you remember, like you just, I think I'm saying.
Go and finish it.
I was basically saying that if you understand something, then you will basically like do it, like put it in action and everything. But to have knowledge of it is just something that you remember. Like say, for instance, tying your shoe or something. You have knowledge of it, but understanding is something totally different, if you kind of understand what I'm saying.
Okay, what y'all think about her answer? Good job. Exactly. Hikmah is wisdom or understanding. It's when you take what you have learned and put it in action or apply it. Like she said, you learned how to tie your shoe. So now I'm going to do it. I'm going to bend down and tie it. That's understanding. It's when you, hikmah, wisdom is when you take what you learned and apply it. You put it in action. And that's what a lot of us fail to understand. A person may have knowledge, but does he or she have the understanding? You know, there's a lot of people that go to school and gain knowledge of something, but do they apply it? And this is the problem that we see today on the internet. You find a lot of men and women speaking about Islam. They have the knowledge, but when it comes to implementing it, that's why you see a lot of famous celebrity brothers. All these celebrity brothers can sit up here and talk about the fiqh of this, the fiqh of that. But then are they applying the fiqh of it in their personal life? No. Okay? They can talk about what Allah said, talk about what the Prophet said, but then they get off the internet and they do the opposite of what Allah said. They do the opposite of what the Prophet said. Okay? What did Allah say about talking to women who are not your mahram? Why are you doing it? What did Allah say about fornication? Why are you doing it? You see what I'm saying? You know what Allah said, but you still doing it. We talked about that last week. You know, a lot of people may have the knowledge, but do they have the understanding? That's something different. A lot of famous people have fallen from grace. You can teach Quran Tajweed. You're sitting up teaching Quran Tajweed, but what are you doing behind the scenes with the women? This is why we got to separate. We got to adhere to the laws of Allah. You don't let women and men mix. Because many scholars have fallen from grace when the perimeters of Allah have been violated. You can't put no man and no woman together. I don't care how much Quran you know. You put a man and a woman together and it's going to lead to hanky-panky. And hanky-panky always leads to stanky. That's why Allah sets those perimeters. Men don't teach women no Quran, not one-on-one. It's got to be always somebody around. Like the Prophet said, no man should enter upon a woman unless he got 1, 2, 3, 4 people with him. Because it's going to lead to hanky-panky stanky. No woman and man should be sitting around chatting together alone on no internet, private messaging, WhatsApping together. It's going to lead to hanky-panky stanky. That's why we got all this sexcapades going on. It always happens. You can have a kickstand for a leg. You could have a cyclops for an eye. You can look like a gorilla. It's going to still lead to hanky-panky stanky. That's just the way it is. That's why Allah knows his creation. That's why he puts those perimeters. We cannot transgress those perimeters. Every time we transgress those perimeters, it's going to lead to failure. So knowledge is nothing without hikmah, without wisdom and understanding. Does everybody get that? All right. No matter how intelligent you think you are. All right. So that's what we went over last week, the el-walad and the different categories of people who are deserving of our allegiance. Now, today we're going to go into detail discussing bara, the people who are deserving of disassociation, those people that we disassociate from. And let's put the PowerPoint again. Make sure you guys are watching on YouTube. Open up a tab on your phone to YouTube so you can see the PowerPoint. Now, those deserving of disassociation, they constitute the second category on the scales of allegiance and disassociation, or el-walad wal-bara. And this group of people are those people who deny Allah. They deny his angels, his books, his prophets. They deny belief in the day of judgment. They deny Allah's decree. They deny the rising of the dead on the day of judgment. They also deny any of the 5 pillars of faith. They are people who engage in worshiping others alongside Allah. They are also people who reserve devotion that's due to Allah for the prophets or his righteous servants, or they seek help or forgiveness from entities other than Allah. They are also people who reject any of Allah's names or attributes. This also includes people who follow a path other than that of the believers. And also they are people who oppose Islam in any way. Now, the Salaf's classification of people into categories based on their worthiness of disassociation. This is crucial for us to understand, because it will help us again to keep people in their proper, perspective. All right. And this chapter of Dr. Karim Abuzaid's book examines the various forms and legislations that will help us to illustrate the concept of disassociation, and how the companions during the time of the prophet would categorize people and keep them in their proper place, which is what we need to get back to doing today. So what I'm going to do is go over the different types of disassociation. And again, a lot of people refer to bara as hatred. It's not hatred. Not like that's not the term I would use in English. I mean, it involves hating for the sake of Allah. But the correct word I would use is disassociation. These are people that I'm going to disassociate from, to avoid. And the first type of disassociation is called severance. And severance refers to the act of abandoning. These are the people I'm going to abandon altogether. This entails leaving something behind or excusing myself from. Okay? In Surah At-Tawbah, Allah mentions this concept as a means to heed a warning and free yourself from. So this is the first type of disassociation, abandonment. I'm going to abandon myself from these people altogether. Listen to what Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning. Freedom from all obligations is declared from Allah and his messenger to those of the polytheists, the pagans, the idolaters, the unbelievers in the oneness of Allah, with whom you made a treaty. So here in this verse of the Quran, in At-Tawbah, Allah is telling us that we abandon altogether. That means we abandon these people completely. Polytheists, pagans, unbelievers who we had a treaty with. We had a treaty with these people, but we abandoned them altogether due to their betrayal of us or whatever. So this verse highlights the concept of disassociation for unbelievers who actively opposed us or actively helped to oppose us. This verse tells us that as Muslims, we are not obligated to fulfill any commitments to them, nor any obligations to them, because they engaged in combat or war against us, or they supported combat against us. So, for example, your family members. Now, you know how Islam teaches us that even though our family members are non-Muslims, We still are supposed to show respect to them. Well, if your family members actively fight against you, they fall in this category of disassociation, severance. I'm going to sever the tie. This is the one time that you can sever the tie of kinship. I'm going to sever the tie of kinship completely with my mother. I can sever or cut the tie of kinship with my parents. Cut the tie of kinship with my siblings completely. I owe them nothing. I'm nothing to them. They're nothing to me because they're enemies to Islam. Y'all understand this now? Am I making sense, Mina? That's why it's called sever the tie. So this act of disassociation, I can cut you off completely. This is the one time I can cut the tie completely to my mother, my father, who's a kafir, because they have openly declared war against me, war against my Lord, war against my religion. They're enemies to Allah. They make fun of my prophet Muhammad. They make fun of my religion. They ridicule the Muslims. They support Israel against the Muslims. Y'all see what I'm saying? Answer me. Y'all understand me?
Yeah, Sister Laila, yeah.
So if y'all got family members who are against Muslims to the point where they want Muslims genocided, this is the type of distancing you can do. You can sever that tie. They're no longer nothing to you because they are enemies to Islam. Y'all understand it? That's the type of disassociation. Okay? This signifies freeing yourself from any obligation or commitment towards such an individual due to their active opposition or assistance in combat against you. Now, you have to understand that this doesn't mean that we go around hating all unbelievers, but again, this is only against those who are actively enemies to us. Remember the case with Asma, the sister of Aisha radiallahu anha. When her mother came to visit her and brought gifts, she refused to see her. The prophet had to tell her, but your mother is not with the Quraysh. She's not one of those that's fighting against us, so you can see her. She wasn't like Abu Sufyan and them who were actively engaged against us. So this is the first type of disassociation, severing the tie. So if you got a family member, for my new shahadas, if your family are ridiculing the prophet, ridiculing Islam, cursing Allah, cursing the Quran, cursing Muslims, you can cut the tie with them. You don't have to go around them at all. You don't have to communicate with them at all. You can cut them off. You tell them that you will never come around them again. They'll never see you again. They'll never hear from you until they change their ways and accept the fact that you are a Muslim. And when they see that you are for real, after so many months go by and they see that they'll never hear from you, they'll probably change. Because parents have an unconditional love. When they see that they blew it with you, either they're going to stop talking about your religion and start respecting you, or they really are enemies. Okay? And this is what happened during the time of the prophet. One of the ways in which allegiance and disassociation happened during his time is when Allah sent down the command not allowing the unbelievers to approach or get near the Kaaba. When Allah sent down the verses saying, "Oh, you who believe, the unbelievers are impure, so do not approach the Kaaba after this year. And that's when, after that battle of conquest, no longer were the unbelievers allowed to get near the Kaaba, to come near the Kaaba in Mecca. All right. So that's an example of this type of disassociation, sever the tie. So the unbelievers may not enter some Islamic countries. And this is one of the requirements of allegiance and disassociation. All right. Also, another example of this type of disassociation is us not participating in non-Muslim holidays and festivities. But you see a lot of Muslims doing it. Like I said, we have no allegiance today. As Muslims, we have to refrain from participating in these festivals and holidays of the non-Muslims. This is a major sin. We only have two holidays, the Eid al-Fitr and the Eid al-Adha. Allah tells us in the Quran, in the interpretation of the meaning, do not give false witness. When we participate in non-Muslim holidays, we're giving false witness. When you do Thanksgiving, this is false witness. Allah tells us to give thanks to him every day of the year, not no one time a year. When you celebrate Valentine's Day, you're giving false witness to adultery, to fornication. When you celebrate all these other Kafir days, you're giving false witness to deities other than Allah. As Ibn Kathir says, he said, do not bear false witness means do not attend it. So this includes the feast of all the pagans, the non-Muslims. Also, this is what Ibn Taymiyyah said too. And again, it's showing allegiance to them. Our allegiance ain't to no patriots. Our allegiance ain't to no Native Americans. Our allegiance ain't to no Confederates. Our allegiance is to Allah, to the Prophet Muhammad, to the Muslims, whoever they may be, not to no non-Muslims. But look at you Muslims today celebrating non-Muslim holidays. And you guys wonder why Allah has sent the war to us. We're supposed to disassociate from that stuff. Also, one of the fundamental aspects of allegiance and disassociation is to engage in struggling for the sake of Allah. This entails striving against the enemies of Allah with all available means, be it with your hands, your tongues, with weapons, or with whatever you have to bring to the table. Like we talked about last week. Whatever I have, whatever assets I have to bring to the table. Struggling is an essential manifestation of allegiance to the believers and disassociation of the unbelievers and hypocrites. However, due to the distortion of this concept, you got many Muslims who call themselves scholars who have become confused about the true meaning of struggle, just like they're confused about the true meaning of al-wala wal-bara. Some even claim that Islam doesn't call for struggle, which is a lie. And these false claims have led to confusion amongst the Muslim people. But it's essential for us to get back to the true meaning of struggle in Islam, just like it's essential for us to learn about al-wala wal-bara too. And also in Islam, disassociation entails cutting the ties not only with those relatives that are enemies to Islam, but also severing the ties of inheritance, severing the ties of guardianship, and severing the ties of marriage with unbelievers. We have to remember that Islam teaches, guys, that Muslims, it is haram for a Muslim to inherit from a non-Muslim. But how many of you Muslims ignore that? It's also haram for a non-Muslim to inherit from us. But how many of you are still allowing your non-Muslim children to inherit from you? This is a sacrilege in Islam. Also in Islam, a Muslim woman cannot have a non-Muslim as her guardian. How many of you Muslim women are having your fathers who are not Muslims be your guardians in your marriage? This is haram. We have to disassociate ourselves entirely from non-Muslims, whether they are your fathers, your brothers, your uncles, whether they are atheists, whether they are Christians, apostates, or whatever. But we're not doing that. And the Prophet Muhammad, sadly, he said that the later generations, we would do that. We would have Muslim women marrying non-Muslim men. We would have Muslim women taking women and Kafir men as their guardians, which we see happening today, which means your marriages are not valid. Your marriages are cursed. He also said you would see Kafirs inheriting from Muslims and Muslims inheriting from Kafirs, which is all haram too. We have to do bara, distance ourselves from all that. We're supposed to sever the ties of all of that, but we're not doing it. So we're going to stop right here for today. These are the groups of people that are deserving of our disassociation, our severing of the ties completely.